We're definitely going to try for a baby.
Your eggs aren't as fresh as they were, are they, love?
Men maturing badly.
I think they make lovely parents.
Men cohabiting badly.
When you grow older, you want a fully grown-up relationship. And Deborah sometimes wanders around the flat in just her pants, and I really like to watch.
The Men Behaving Badly final trilogy starts Christmas Day at 9:50 on BBC1.
It's like the end of an era.
There's the shape of something here that's breathtakingly impressive.
If I weren't a rational man, I'd say there was devilry at work in this house.
Like a kind of madness has taken over and there are no rules anymore.
Alan Davis and Caroline Quentin
I just thought maybe I could be useful here tonight, that's all.
What, as a contraceptive?
are joined by Rick Mail
I could smell guilt on a man like dung on a donkey.
in a Jonathan Creek special after the news on BBC1.
And the main evening news now this Christmas Eve with Peter Sissons.
The opposition step up the pressure after the resignation of Peter Mandelson, demanding a wide-ranging inquiry into the whole affair. As the former Trade Secretary tries to get away from it all, he's urged to say if he failed to declare his loan from Geoffrey Robinson on a mortgage application. Still on track, but at the mercy of the weather, the Branson balloon is now halfway round the world. And what it feels like to be the father of octuplets, with the prospect of 1,000 nappies a week. Good evening. Peter Mandelson is under increasing pressure tonight to clear up one of the big questions left over from his resignation yesterday. When he applied for a mortgage on his £475,000 home, did he tell his building society that he was borrowing most of the money from the millionaire MP Geoffrey Robinson, who yesterday also resigned? Building societies say that withholding such information on a mortgage application could add up to fraud. The Conservatives are calling on Tony Blair to authorise a wide-ranging inquiry into the whole affair. Our political editor, Robin Oakley, reports.
Locking up and leaving today, Peter Mandelson couldn't close the door on the questions which still dog him over the six-figure loan he took to buy his house, like whether he revealed all to the building society which supplied the rest of the cash. Ministers were busier defending the government's reputation than his.
I don't think there's anybody in the country who wants this sorted out more quickly and more thoroughly than Peter does himself, because it goes to the heart of his reputation for integrity. But it's nothing to do with the government. The government didn't take out the mortgage. He wasn't a member of the government when he took out the mortgage. He's not a member of the government now.
One Mandelson well-wisher tried, too late, to send him something to help him drown his sorrows in style. Labour MPs are grateful for the speed of Mr Mandelson's departure. The Tories remain critical of how long it took the Prime Minister to get rid of the man who lent him the money, the much criticised former Paymaster General.
We've seen the Geoffrey Robinson affair now lingering on, dragging on since May of last year, and it's only some months later that he's eventually gone. And I think this is only the tip of the iceberg, and what we're calling on is for the Prime Minister now to investigate the whole way that his government operates to destroy this culture of cronyism which is doing no good to the reputation of this country.
The government is licking its wounds. The men lost overboard were key players, and their troubles aren't over yet. The Trade Department's still looking into Mr Robinson's business affairs. The Commons watchdog has to rule on whether Peter Mandelson should have registered his home loan. And some Labour MPs won't like reports that Mr Mandelson's friends are already urging him to run for Mayor of London. Robin Oakley, BBC News.
So where does Peter Mandelson stand on how much he told the Britannia Building Society about the Robinson loan? He said he believes the application form he filled in may not have reflected the final arrangements for the house purchase. Our legal affairs correspondent Joshua Rosenberg looks at the problems that can arise if a borrower fails to disclose the full facts.
Filling in a mortgage application is a serious business. You have to tell the bank or building society about any other loans you may have, whether they're secured on the property or not. The Britannia Building Society lent Peter Mandelson £150,000. He can't find a copy of his original application form, but he now believes it may not reflect the final financing arrangements on the property, as these were undecided at the time he applied for the mortgage. Mortgage experts say that any attempt to deceive a lending organisation by failing to disclose other loans is a serious matter.
It's very serious because it is tantamount to theft. It is obtaining monies by deception, in that the lender is unable to make a proper judgment as to whether they should lend in that situation. And at the end of the day, if the borrower cannot make the payments, property may be repossessed, a loss may be incurred.
The Britannia Building Society won't comment on Mr. Mandelson's mortgage, but other lenders say that if a loan is being repaid, legal action is unlikely in cases like this.
If the lenders had their attention drawn to the fact that there's been some form of material evidence that have not been provided with on day one, they could take the attitude they want to investigate more about that application form and the circumstances behind it. In many cases, as long as the borrower is still paying their mortgage regularly, they're unlikely to take any form of action.
Peter Mandelson will be writing to his building society from this now famous address in West London to clarify any ambiguity about the arrangements for buying his house. That may well be enough for the Britannia, but whether it will satisfy his critics, even during this season of goodwill, is another matter. Joshua Rosenberg, BBC News.
Well, our political editor, Robin Oakley, joins me now. Robin, would you expect that this government, which sets so much store on its ability to manage events, would try to draw a line under this affair over the holiday period?
Well, they would clearly hope that would happen. I don't think it really is. It's been running too hard and too strong. The Tories feel they've got a real theme now on which they can wound the government, the theme of cronyism. New Labour campaigned its way to power saying it stood for the many, not the few. It's been exposed in the last few days with several of its most prominent members living a lifestyle available only to a very few. So the Tories will undoubtedly keep up this kind of pressure. The next focus will be on whether Mr. Robinson funded Gordon Brown's office in opposition. And that's the kind of thing you can see William Hague raising at Prime Minister's questions when the House gets back.
It's been a great Christmas present for the Tories. Would you expect them to start thinking, well, perhaps the tide has turned for them? Perhaps the honeymoon period really is over? Perhaps we can get Blair's opinion poll ratings below 50%.
Oh, clearly the Tories will hope that. I mean, they had their own spat of accidental fireworks when William Hague had to fire the leader of the Lords, but they've seen the government starting to get in trouble in other ways. Pretty mixed reviews for the government over the Iraqi bombings with the Americans. And next year is the year of elections. There are elections for the Scottish Parliament, for the Welsh Assembly, for the European Parliament, all of those on proportional representation, which will mean the Tories, who haven't got any seats in Scotland or Wales at the moment, are bound to make advances, as they will in local government elections, because of the seats that are being contested. So Labour's image is bound to slip back a bit, and no longer can it be true that things can only get better for them.
Robin Oakley, thank you. 2 RAF transport planes have airlifted more than 70 British and a number of other foreign nationals from Sierra Leone's capital, Freetown, because of renewed fighting around the city. Forces loyal to the former military regime are trying to bring down the civilian government which was installed earlier this year. Peacekeeping troops from other West African countries were sent to Sierra Leone to restore the government of President Kaba, who'd been removed from power in a military coup. But the rebels have remained active in some areas across the country. Serbian security forces in Kosovo have been involved in a fresh attack against ethnic Albanian rebels who want greater freedom from Serbian rule. The fighting broke out in the north of the province near the capital Pristina. The Albanian reports say at least one person was killed and several more wounded. Albania's government has called on NATO to intervene to avoid fresh bloodshed and ensure peace and stability. Richard Branson and his round-the-world balloon crew have reached the halfway point in their journey, but now they're facing another risk. Monitors at the team's control centre say they're worried that adverse weather conditions as they cross the Pacific Ocean may force them to ditch into the sea. The balloon is now travelling at 145 miles an hour at a height of 31,000 feet over the Pacific and should reach America by Christmas Day.
6 days and 9 hours after liftoff, the balloon's crew have ascended to aircraft cruising altitude in what's become a race over the Pacific against the weather. They'd been warned by weather experts at the Balloon Tracking Centre in West London that a trough of low pressure loomed, threatening the whole record attempt. Their speed of just over 100 miles an hour was reckoned too slow, so they've gone up to go faster and stay clear of it.
If you can imagine taking a bath plug out of a bath and all the water spins down, Well, what happens then, we need to get to this area before it actually deepens like this so the balloon doesn't disappear down it. Because once we get stuck in that trough of low pressure, then the project's over and they're in the sea.
The team should know whether they've beaten the low-pressure trough by early tomorrow. It'll be a tense Christmas day for Richard Branson and his two co-pilots, 31,000 feet above the Pacific. But whatever the weather holds, flight controllers here plan to sing Christmas carols to the crew to keep spirits high. Mike Donkin, BBC News, at the Balloon Tracking Centre.
An off-the-cuff remark by Prince Charles has added fuel to the debate over using cannabis to relieve the symptoms of serious illness. During an informal visit by the Prince to a Sue Ryder home in Gloucestershire, he asked a woman with multiple sclerosis if she'd ever taken the drug. Campaigners who support the use of cannabis welcome the Prince's interest.
Even the simple task of wrapping Christmas presents can be painful for multiple sclerosis sufferers like Adrian Staniford. But as a campaigner for the legalisation of cannabis for medical use, she says Prince Charles's interest is a welcome boost to the whole debate. She's a firm believer that the drug helps.
I do know from experience that the benefits that I derived from it were the fact that my spasms in my arms and legs stopped, the pain control was great, and it gave me much more freedom to do what I wanted to do.
Prince Charles's curiosity about whether cannabis can help MS sufferers should come as no surprise to those who know his views on alternative medicines.
Complementary medicine can sometimes bring a different approach and assist in unlocking the individual's inner resources.
In countries like Switzerland, MS sufferers can use cannabis freely. In Britain, they face imprisonment, though the courts do tend to be lenient. But doctors who've welcomed a House of Lords science report recommending that they be allowed to prescribe cannabis say the drug's still too crude for medical use.
When purer forms of the drug are available, then that will be the time to make the drug available on prescription to those patients who would derive benefit from it.
Aides for the Prince here at St James's Palace made it clear that in no way was he promoting the use of cannabis, merely inquiring about its use to alleviate pain for those who suffer from multiple sclerosis. But whatever the arguments for and against, the Prince has no intention of being drawn into the row publicly. John McIntyre, BBC News at St James's Palace.
More than 20,000 mugs, which were given away free with a children's video by the retailer W.H. Smith, have been recalled over a health scare. The red mugs were handed out with videos of the film Mouse Hunt. Trading standards officers found that the glazing on some of the cups had rubbed off, exposing potentially hazardous lead paint. The father of the world's only living octuplets has said he's stunned beyond belief and elated at the births. He is making his first public comment since becoming a father of 8. Doctors in Texas say they're optimistic about the progress of the babies, although the condition of one of the little girls is still causing concern.
Making his first public appearance, the proud father of 6 baby girls and 2 boys. Too stunned to speak out earlier, he's still taking it all in.
Good morning.
Doctors in Houston are worried about the smallest baby, a little girl, but early tests show at least half the babies have no major defects.
How are you? Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm blessed.
Thanking the medical staff who've made this possible, the family say no words can truly express their joy.
I'm excited and grateful to God for giving us these blessings. You know, me and my wife are very elated.
They're grateful too for the offers of support flooding in from around the world. 7 of the babies will be taken off mechanical ventilators tomorrow to see if they can breathe unaided, and thoughts are already turning to other practical challenges.
We're talking about 1,000 diapers a week. It changed, on that, so there's a lot of work to be done.
The babies have now been given names. They'll remain in intensive care for the next few weeks, their family praying for their health and survival. Geeta Gurumurthy, BBC News.
And the main news tonight, the Conservatives have stepped up their demands for an inquiry into the secret loan that led to the resignations of the Trade Secretary Peter Mandelson and the Paymaster General Geoffrey Robinson. And that's all from the newsroom this Christmas Eve. Nothing left for me to do except wish you, from all of us here, a very happy Christmas. Good night.
Good evening. More than 250 mourners have attended a funeral service to celebrate the life of Rhys Daniels, who died of Batten's disease on Monday. Rhys lost his brave fight against the rare genetic disorder just a week before his 8th birthday. The tribute was held at St John's Church in Epping in Essex.
There could have been few more disturbing sights than a child's coffin entering a church on Christmas Eve. But Rhys Daniels' parents, Barry and Carmen, wanted their son's funeral in the family's hometown of Epping in Essex to be as happy and as positive as possible. They asked the mourners to wear colourful clothes, and the songs and themes played were all family favourites. Barry Daniels fought back tears to speak movingly of 7-year-old Rhys. He said he was proud of the boy whose fight against Batten's disease won a Child of Courage award. He spoke too of the son who just wanted to be like everyone else. And the service would not have been complete without the theme from Rhys's favourite film E.T., which he watched every day.
Hopes are fading for the pilot of a 2-seater jet after it ditched in the sea off Essex this afternoon. An air and sea search has so far failed to locate him. The ex-RAF jet trainer went into the water a mile from Bradwell-on-Sea. A group of swimmers who braved the icy waters of Hampstead Heath even on the coldest winter's day say their long-treasured tradition is under threat. As they took the plunge in sub-zero temperatures today, they claimed new regulations could leave them literally frozen out.
Christmas just wouldn't be Christmas without last-minute shopping, stuffing the turkey, and of course a dip in a freezing pond. These swimmers regularly trek up to Hampstead Heath in North London to revive their senses. But the City of London Corporation, who run the Heath, say there's a problem. Fearing the swimming could be too dangerous, they've brought in a new rule. If there's ice on the ponds, then there'll be no bathing.
People who go and swim in the winter do know what they're doing. They don't sort of casually go out and say, oh, I think I'll go for a swim. I mean, they're determined. They do it every day. They're used to it. They know why they're doing it. They know what the benefits are. They know what the dangers are as well.
With temperatures often dipping below zero, the swimmers may appear to be slightly mad, but you can't deny it's a picturesque way to spend the holiday season. Jonathan Sundberg, Newsroom South East on Hampstead Heath.
And that's all from us for now. We're back at 5:25 on Boxing Day. Until then, have a very happy and peaceful Christmas. Bye-bye.
Good evening to you. Richard Branson isn't the only one battling with a low-pressure trough. So is Father Christmas. In fact, no fewer than 3 of them. Mind you, it's going to be worse on Boxing Day, a real nasty area of low pressure zipping into the north of Northern Ireland across central Scotland, and that's going to bring some stormy weather, I think, to many parts of the country, more particularly the west and the northwest. Now back to the present, we've got some rain in northwestern areas and some drizzly bits and pieces in other areas as well. Most of the rain will clear during the night. It's going to hold on, I think, across the southern half there, and there'll be some showers coming in with clearing skies in that northwestern corner. But because it's going to be windy, it isn't going to be a particularly cold night anywhere. Another weather system to contend with tomorrow. We hold on to the rain in the south. It begins to get its act together again in the southwest early on in the day, and then this wet weather is going to be sweeping northwards across most parts of England and Wales. Some pretty wet weather and some windy weather too. Northern Ireland and Scotland staying brighter with some sunshine and blustery showers. In fact, the only white Christmas, I think, is for the sheep on the hills there, and not many showers getting through to eastern Scotland either. A windy day just about everywhere, but fairly mild in the south. Highest temperatures there around about 10 or 11 degrees. Then, as I said, the trouble begins on Boxing Day. Although we start off bright, wet and extremely windy weather coming up across most parts of the country. Some snow to begin with, again, over some of those northernmost hills. And still rain around, I think, on Sunday, although there will be some bright weather as well between and ahead of that particular area of rain. It remains for me to wish you a very happy Christmas from everybody in the Weather Centre.
Looking for the secrets of happiness and eternal youth on BBC2 in 5 minutes, a perilous journey through stunning scenery in search of the lost city of Shangri-La.
Honest to God, I never thought to see you in such a state. You must miss him dreadfully.
Get him out! Get him out!
You do not leave your room until Her Majesty requests it.
The Queen will ride out if and when she chooses.
I believe Her Majesty's wrong. If ever a poor soul needed some fresh air, it's her.
Judi Dench
For friendship.
and Billy Connolly star in the BBC Oscar-nominated film Mrs. Brown. Sunday, 8:40, on BBC One.
There's a new ward at Holby City.
Want you in theatre, Mr. Jordan?
She's a serial swallower.
Mr. May would just like to take...
Breathe. Well, I'm sure her father will be delighted to get that back.
You smoke again, Mr. Pearson, and I will undo what I've already done.
Transfer for surgery.
Well, I could have made a neater incision with a lawnmower.
Try not to kill any of the patients.
Holby City.
Anton Mayer, consultant.
12th of January on BBC One.
Spice Girl, Mel C, Aled Jones and a mystery guest with a presidential secret. Here on BBC One, it's the Frank Skinner's Christmas show at 11. Gruesomely macabre but devilishly clever. First on BBC One, Rick Mayall guest stars in a real baffler for Jonathan Creek.